and welcome to the We Need to Calm Down podcast. I'm Devon.
And I'm Joe.
And we're here recording in a room on a typical Tuesday afternoon.
That's right, it's afternoon again, isn't it? How are you doing today, Devon?
I'm okay. I'm a little sleepy, but we're okay. I have not put on any makeup today. I am wearing my supercut shirt, which we'll talk about later, why I'm wearing it, but I'm feeling cozy. How about you?
I messed up. I'm wearing an Ed Sheeran shirt for no reason, but I'm doing okay. I'm also a little exhausted, mentally and emotionally, because of what we're going to talk about today. Devon, what are we going to talk about today?
So today we're actually going to be reviewing the movie Someone Great.
That seems weird. What does that have to do with Taylor Swift?
I'm glad you asked. We always talk about Someone Great.
Ooh, that's a good point.
We do. It's Taylor Swift. No, but so Someone Great is this movie that came out, how long did it go?
2019, I believe.
2019, okay. And it's basically about
Watch me be completely wrong.
You didn't do that one piece of
research. I did the one thing I didn't, verify. Keep going. I'll figure it out.
But so, the movie was released on Netflix. It was a Netflix-only release. And basically, it's this, kind of coming-of-age story, like a night out with, a bunch of girlfriends. And this one girl has ended a 9-year-long relationship. And it's a story about basically how she's coping with that and spending, one more night out with her friends before she moves across the country from New York to California.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm saying this like we didn't just watch it.
Yes.
We did. It did come out in 2019.
Okay.
And it's actually based on a story that the director made, or a life the director lived in about 2014, around when 1989 came out.
Ah. So what does this have to do with Taylor Swift exactly, you might be asking?
Well, like I said, in 2014, the director went through all of this, and at the time of the breakup that inspired the story, was comforted by Taylor Swift's 1989, which she mentions in a blurb from her Instagram, which I'll read here. So she said, a couple of days ago when I was searching Someone Great on Twitter, I found something curious. There were rumors swirling around that Taylor had a song on Lover called Death by a Thousand Cuts, which was also written by Jack Antonoff. And it was inspired by her film, which she says turns out is true. And she's been listening to Taylor's music since her very first album, and as she grew, I grow, ebbing and flowing through life like a musical North Star in her catalog. And let me tell you how true that is. So in the fall of 2014, when I was a certified basket case, wandering around LA in pajamas, heartbroken over the boy I had left behind in New York, 1989 was there like a best friend with a bottle of tequila and a bear hug, which, I mean, is the definition of this movie, as we'll find. But she said she found most comfort in the song Clean, a song about rebirth and love lost, and it inspired Someone Great. And now, in the most surreal, what is even happening, full circle situation, the movie that was inspired by Clean has inspired Taylor Swift to write a song, Death by a Thousand Cuts. And now she has a new song to help her through heartbreak, and then quotes the song Saying Goodbye is Death by a Thousand Cuts, flashbacks waking me up, I get drunk but it's not enough, and then you just scroll down a little bit, because the morning comes and you're not my baby.
How did you not know that first?
Listen, alright?
You're just not as good as lyrics as I am.
I know.
So, I mean, and Taylor Swift addressed it too, she said, I just wrote a song based on something she made, which she made while listening to something I made, which is the most meta thing that's ever happened to me. The movie Someone Great tells the story of a couple who ends their relationship after 9 years. It's a movie about how she has to end this relationship that she didn't want to end because she's still in love with the person, but they just grew apart and he's not a jerk. It's just sad because it's realistic, time passed, and now we're two different people, and it's the most devastating thing. So, it's such a meta concept, the fact that, the creative minds are crazy. The fact that, the director made this movie with 1989 and Clean kind of in the back of her mind influencing her, and then Taylor Swift happens to stumble along this movie and she's like, oh, it's going to be like a girl comedy, like a girl's weekend kind of movie, sure, let's watch it. And then she falls in love with it because it is so real and is inspired. She said that in another interview that she would keep waking up with these lyrics from this movie. She was so inspired by the story that she sat down and wrote Death by a Thousand Cuts. And now they're influencing each other, and it's just a really cool tip of the hat moment.
I think she mentioned in the Tiny Desk concert she did, where I think she performed this song, and she said it was so great because I thought that now that I've found like love and everything, I wouldn't be able to write about breakups. And then I finally had one, and I was like, yes, I can still do it.
Yeah, I can still be influenced to write breakup songs when they're not about me, which is wonderful.
Which, let me tell you, we are all so thankful
We're very appreciative of the fact. Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much what the movie's about. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Basically, just kind of giving some quick facts, context about the movie, lyrics, and, you know, the ties with the music, and how they're so, like, how Taylor Swift and her lyrics have kind of influenced the movie in ways that they've popped up. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I watched this movie earlier, and did I tell you anything about it when we brought it up to, like, before we watched it?
No, so you said that I want to do an episode about someone great, and I said, okay, I've never seen it before, and so then I watched it, and he was like, you're gonna cry to this movie, and I'm like, okay, bet, and I was watching it, and my roommate comes home like halfway through, and she's like working on something in the living room, and I don't want to seem like a baby, so like it was towards the end of the movie, and I just like single tears coming down. I'm like, oh no, Devon, you have to be cool, because
strong.
I'm such a crybaby when it comes to like emotional movies, but I did end up like crying a lot towards the end. It's a sad movie, but it's also a very like, I don't know, it's a good sad, which they talk about later in the movie.
I'm a sucker for breakup movies. My favorite movies are ones that just flat out do not have a happy ending, and are about relationships. And when I heard musings of this whole story about Taylor Swift one day, and I was in my big movie watching phase, and I was like, this sounds like it has the perfect storm of everything. I watched it, and I remember the first time I watched it, I didn't really get anything from it, mostly because I'm stupid.
You just didn't understand the movie.
I didn't understand the movie, and we'll get into that later. But then when we rewatched it with Devon, a lot of it just made more sense, and it was really awesome. So anyway, let's get into some quick facts.
I understood it from the beginning.
All right, yeah, because you're smarter than me. Everyone knows.
So first quick fact I want to talk about is how amazing the cast is. They picked so many wonderful people, you know. Gina Rodriguez, who, you know, has a little bit of a problematic history I don't want to get into, but she's from Jane the Virgin. She plays the main character, Jenny, which is based off of the director. Brittany Snow, that you might have seen in like movies like Pitch Perfect.
Or The Pacifier.
She's her best friend Blair. And then DeWanda Wise is Erin, and she's in movies like She's Gotta Have It, or that might be a TV show. She's Gotta Have It. Mm-hmm. But so the movie revolves around Jenny, Blair, and Erin, these three best friends. And then Nate is played by Lakeith Stanfield, who is in everything. I love this man. He is such a fantastic actor.
He's so good.
He's been in everything lately. He was in Sorry to Bother You. He's been in Atlanta, Get Out. He was in Uncut Gems, Straight Outta Compton, Knives Out.
What's nuts is, of all of these things, I've watched 4 of these 6 movies this year alone.
Yeah.
Like, Sorry to Bother You.
Fantastic
movie. If you know nothing about that movie, watch it. Because going into that movie completely blind is insane, and it is such a good movie, especially in today's political climate.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
It's really good, and he is such a standout actor in this. In that movie, he's so good.
Anything Lakeith Stanfield touches is gold. Anyways, so, and then that's pretty much the main cast. So Nate is Jenny's ex-boyfriend or boyfriend at the time. And then we have these guest appearances that are just crazy. Like, you pointed it out. Rosario Dawson.
You know what's really bad is I pointed it out because I only know Rosario Dawson from one thing, and it's none of the movies you listed.
What do you know her from?
I know her from Clerks 2. Because I was really big into this View Askewniverse when I was like in high school as an edgy kid. And yeah, I didn't know her from Sin City, Briar Patch, Rent, Josie the Pussycats. I had no idea of any of that. I just knew her from Clerks 2.
Because I know she, she's like an activist, and I was trying to like look up like what movies and things she's been in, and I didn't know this. She dated Eric Andre.
That is nuts.
And now she's like dating Cory Booker, which is like the weirdest.
What a transition.
Exactly. But so Rosario Dawson's in it. She plays...
What's it like to date Eric Andre?
I have no idea. He's probably a normal guy. But she plays Hannah, which is Nate's cousin that they run into. RuPaul makes an appearance.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, as Hype, who's they're like basically drug dealer, Molly dealer. No explanation needed. If you don't know who RuPaul is in this day and age, I'm sorry. Peter Vack is Matt, so... he was in this MTV comedy, I Just Want My Pants Back, and he's also in Mozart in the Jungle, which I've heard really good things about. They've won a lot of awards. Rebecca Naomi Jones plays Leah, which is Erin's love interest, and she's a Broadway powerhouse.
She was in the Green Day American Idiot. That is so cool.
She's in American Idiot, Passing Strange, and then Hedwig and the Angry Inch. So she's just this rock Broadway goddess that just blessed this movie. Michelle Buteau is Cynthia. She only makes a brief appearance in the very beginning of the movie when they're in a subway.
Oh my gosh.
But she's a comedian, an actress. She was the voice of the host of The Circle, which is the Netflix dating show, or dating show, competition.
Reality, yeah. She was great in that intro scene,
yeah,
too.
she was just fantastic.
We,
It was so
we
funny.
both we were both texting during it and we're like, was that a stranger? Like, is that interaction over?
That was just like a little blip of greatness. Alex Moffat from SNL plays Will, which was Blair's interest. Questlove and Jesse Reyes are just performing at the end. I'm glad that they actually got like real celebrities to perform this concert. But we were like, is that Questlove?
We both texted each other, is that Questlove?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
And then a really cool cameo that I didn't realize at the time because I've never actually seen his face was Jabuki Young White, and he plays this guy Mikey who they find through Craigslist to get tickets to this concert, and he is a comedian. He was a correspondent on the Daily Show. He's like the senior young.
That was like the scene I wouldn't stop talking about.
Yeah,
I
and
love that scene.
This man is the best Twitter troll ever. He's got kicked off of Twitter, back on. He was verified. And he would just make jokes about, like, he would, since he has the verified check, he would change his display name and then pretend he was tweeting as those people. And people would believe it because he has the blue check mark. So, this man,
his delivery
is fantastic. So he's an amazing comedian. But yeah, so I just really think the casting of this movie was phenomenal. The soundtrack, which we'll get into later when we talk about music, is just a phenomenal choice.
And it's not even just like the songs they chose, but like how they enacted the songs, which is
forget
insane.
the position it's like the
sound design.
It's not sound design. It's something else. But the person whose role that was did a fantastic job. The way that they have music in this movie is fantastic. But that's pretty much my quick facts. Do you have anything to add?
I mean, honestly, no. It's before we get into any spoilers, we just want to just reiterate. This was a great movie. We both really enjoyed it. If you like romantic comedies, if you like crying, like we do, clearly we did a whole episode about it. If you like breakups and things like that, or if you're going through one, and especially the thing that's interesting is like I said, we're a Taylor Swift podcast, and we're randomly reviewing this movie that is very tangentially related to Taylor Swift. But if you are a Taylor Swift fan, for some reason you'll like this movie a lot. Like you really will. It really tailors to the exact kind of fans that we are. Like
it tailors.
Oh, that was good. That was so intentional.
Exactly. If you haven't watched this movie, I would say pause it. It's only 90 minutes. It's a quick watch. It's a really good watch. It flows very well. It goes by quickly. Take the time, watch it, and then come back and listen to the rest of this. We don't want to spoil anything for you. But basically now we're gonna go in and talk about some of the things. But before we do that, we want to take a quick ad break.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a quick ad break here from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. And we're back.
Hello, welcome back. So hopefully you've watched the movie. Hopefully you've loved it and you've cried and you've felt all the feelings that we have felt. So now we're going to first dive into a couple of the scenes or the lines that have jumped out to us. Is there anything you want to talk about right off the bat?
I think you can start with that.
With what?
With what scenes that you
okay,
you had some that you were very passionate about.
Yeah, so there's some scenes that just the parts that I've cried at, or the single tears that have come down, really stood out to me was after their really big fight. They said like they make up and they're basically laying down, and he's like, oh, you're my person, and she's like, forever. But like you hear the break in her voice and like the sadness behind it, and that both of them, like, they know it's over and they just don't want to really admit it yet. They don't want to like have to come to that. And I think that's just a really sad and real thing. Like, this movie is just very real. I haven't seen anything like quite like it in a while. So I'm really, it's satisfied. And then, the breakup scene when it's like raining and she's like, don't end us. I'm scared to do this without you. Can I just have a minute? And it's just like, it hits you all in those feels. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later with like tying into the music, but those are just like such impactful scenes. I think overall the movie was really funny too. It was a
good comedy.
It was a good balance of, you know, the comedic end of it and then like the real sad motions. It's just a very real movie.
Yeah, like I think it's weird because like I don't know, I don't want a 50-50 movie. Like I don't want a 50% sad, 50% comedy, because I don't think you really get a good mix of that. Like I think this was a really good 60-40.
Yeah.
Kind of like it was definitely more sad than it was funny, but I think that's important. Like
yeah, you had all these sad moments, and then you had, you know, Blair turning around and saying, "Oh, you know, I'm a Ravenclaw, or
yeah,
I'm a Slytherin with a Ravenclaw moon." It's like,
and that whole scene with him was just hilarious.
Was
like he's just like, I'm gonna steal this bottle to kill. He goes, look, if you just asked, I would have given it to you. If you want to live your life in violence,
go for it.
Like he just like there was a lot of really great line deliveries that helped the comedic timing go really well.
It just like moved the story along too, you know.
But related to what you said, the one scene, like the "You're my person" says forever. I really liked that they took the time to set that up in the beginning. The scene that I think that we both realized was the one that was this is gonna be bad. Was the scene where they do the supercut of their whole relationship. And to Lord's supercut,
the shirt that I'm wearing, the supercut merchandise.
So like it was nuts. Like we saw that, and like they set up really well, because in that scene they do a lot of texting, and you see like a lot of the early conversations with them. And it sets up the love you, and instead of saying I love you back or I love you too or anything, like I love in movies when they do kind of stuff like that where it's not the normal just, I love you too. It's they have their own special thing.
Yeah.
And their special thing was I love you forever.
Yeah.
And they set that up really well in the beginning of the movie to make it this heartbreaking thing towards the end.
Well, you brought up a really good point too with that whole supercut scene at the very end of it with the texting trope. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, no. So something I noticed. We've actually watched weirdly a lot of stuff together, like through texting lately.
Only 2 movies.
2 movies and a TV show and like stuff stuff like that. But like we watched this TV show that came out earlier this year called Dave about Lil Dicky, and we noticed in that show when he breaks up with his girlfriend.
Yeah, spoiler.
Spoiler. He sends her like this long message, and then it cuts to, you could just see the text bubbles of their conversation, and she like you see the Apple iPhone like typing, and then nothing, and then she just likes his text. And this movie does that exact same thing where she's what was it?
She says, you know,
I can't believe we just broke up. Is that what it was? Yeah. And he starts typing and then doesn't say anything.
And just stops, yeah.
And like and that is, I think that's just becoming more of a trope, especially like obviously I think texting in movies is becoming more of a trope to just explain conversations that would normally obviously happen during texting and not like dialogue. But I think like that's such a powerful visual. Exactly.
It's a powerful visual, and it's also very reminiscent of this time that we're living in now. Like, you know, it's not like someone isn't answering your calls or someone isn't like writing you back. It's a visual representation of someone that is trying to say something and then decides, you know what, I'm just not going to. That's more heartbreaking.
Have you ever had that happen to you? Have you ever have you ever been on the receiving end or the giving end?
I'm trying to think. Not with this past breakup. I also am new to the iPhone game.
Okay.
So I only got an iPhone last March, so it's like a little over a year now.
That's right. When I first met you, you were Android. You were Android, and you met me when I was switching from Android to Apple.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had that, but like I do know with an iPhone now when I'm texting and iMessaging, I really think if I want to text someone before I start typing.
Yeah, I also I don't really. Like, I'll send something, and then I'll go do something else. I don't think I've ever been, unless it's a very serious conversation, like if you're breaking up with someone or, like, discussing it via text, like, I don't think you're staring at the screen enough to notice, like, oh, it started and stopped. Because if you're not in the message app, you don't see that. Yeah,
you don't see it, no. Yeah. Which I think is also, like, a point
unless it's on Snapchat, which that has happened to me.
Yeah.
Where I've typed something, and then I go to do something else, and you see, like, oh, X, Y, and Z is typing.
And then there's no...
And then there's no... Yeah. That has happened to me.
But I think that also goes to show like that shows she was looking at that conversation and like she was expected from it. And I think she was expecting an answer. I texted you during the movie at that scene. I was like, "Have you ever texted someone, I can't believe we just broke up?" And you said no. And I said, great, I'm alone. Because I've done that a lot.
The only time I've ever said something similar to that was I had a boyfriend try to break up with me via text in like high school. And I was like, you're not doing this over text. And then I called him and he was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, goodbye.
I think I've been broken up with in every medium possible.
Email?
No. I got back together with someone through email.
Okay, well, I mean, like reaching out to someone, yeah.
I got broken up with through text, through Facebook Messenger, through, Skype.
Oh, God.
They wanted to Skype me because they had just broken up with me over text, so they wanted to make sure that this time they didn't do it over text.
Oh, my gosh.
But no, I have had that happen where, like, it makes sense for this movie because she's been a 9-year relationship. Like, 9 years. As you pointed out, that's almost a decade.
Yeah.
And, like, to just say, yeah, like, I can't believe that 9 years is done. And who are you going to say that to? The only person you have is that person who was there with you for 9 years.
I know. That's such a relationship thing, too. Like, you know, you want to talk about it with the person who understands the most, which is your old partner, but it's not your place anymore. Yeah. It's like, it's hard.
That's the thing is, like, what I think the hardest thing, and I don't know how much you really get it from this movie, except, I guess, in this moment, but, like, you get that part where after you break up, especially, like, a long-term relationship, where you're, like, slowly, like, reeling back from texting them, and, like, realizing, like, when something big happens, that's not your person to immediately text it about.
Breakups suck, man.
God, just someone break up with me.
No. So another couple things that are just like kind of things that jumped out to me. I really like the fact that the movie starts and ends at this neon classic event. You know, that's where they come from at the very beginning, and then at the very end it kind of like wraps up there. And the whole neon theme in this movie is crazy. The fact that they use neon as this medium with the lighting in order to indicate that you're in a flashback. That's what Joe didn't understand about the movie.
Listen, I didn't realize they were flashing. The first time I watched it, I didn't realize they were flashing back. I just thought, wow, this is a really weirdly told story. She's like getting back together with and breaking up with this guy over 9 years. I'm stupid, okay?
It's just a really cool way that, you know, movies and directors are able to convey a difference of time in the way that they shoot the movie, and you know, it's this grainier neon, more the colors are a lot warmer in the past, probably warmer because it's like, you know, happier, and then you see these fluorescent harsh lights in the actual moments of present day time because it's like, you know, this is just plain and black and white, this is what it is.
I think we pointed out that like the only time you see Nate not in that lighting was in the close to the very beginning when they mark their spot, and that's because they're out in public during the day. But outside of that, But
I think it's still a little bit warmer.
Yeah,
it's not
100%,
neon,
100%.
But it's,
But every other time in that movie when you see Nate, it's in that same like lighting, which is insane. And like, it's so cool.
The coolest thing that you pointed out was the fact that, you know, you have all these flashbacks to like the neon and the warm lights.
Even in their bedroom, it's that same color.
But then when they see each other at the end of the movie at Neon Classic, it's present day time, but you see the neon finally come together because that's what she remembers of him, and it's like, you're in the present time, but you have, you know, you're at Neon Classic, everything's neon and lit warm, and it's like, you know, you have these feelings come back, and she has to, like, you know, get away from it.
It's the flashbacks finally catching up with the present day. And that's the thing, like, I think that one of the things I really enjoy about doing just movie reviews in general is just being able to look for things like that. When, like, it's obviously, don't get me wrong, it's fun to just watch a movie just to watch a movie, but it's really fun to try to pick out things that the director did that you didn't notice, or like points like this. And it was so much fun to be like just texting like, oh my gosh, did you see that? And then just like typing like a little bit of like about it, like, it's so cool. And then you went absolutely nuts about this, about the soundtrack for this movie.
Oh, I loved the soundtrack of this. I mean, I don't know if we want to get into that now.
We can kind of splurge, like mix the two.
But I'm trying to think of like another just like cute little Taylor thing that I think was relatable was at the very beginning she's looking at this Polaroid of her and Nate, and I think that, you know, Polaroids were such a big thing with 1989.
Like, I remember edition they came with.
Exactly, like the little CD had all those Polaroids in it, and I think that's just a cute little nod to like, oh, Taylor Swift influenced me. 1989 is the album that influenced her. and now we have a Polaroid of
Well,
that.
well, here's a good transition into the soundtrack. You mentioned the scene where they break up, and I also mentioned the supercut scene.
Yeah.
What I noticed when we were watching, there was the scene with the breakup, which was an insane scene to be a part of and like really take in. But she says, "Don't end," like you said. She says, "Don't end us. I'm scared to do this without you. Can I just have 1 minute?" And they're sitting on a couch very close together. And I noticed, like, because I was in the Lorde mindset of like supercut in the beginning, I was like, wait a minute, this kind of sounds like Hard Feelings.
Yes.
And I looked up the lyrics to Hard, because it just clicked in my head, and I looked it up, and the lines in Hard Feelings was, "Please can you be tender, and I will sit close to you," as they're sitting close on a couch. Let's give it a minute before we admit that we're through. Like,
as much as of a Lorde fan that I am, the fact that you had to point this out to me, my mind is just blown. I'm like,
Hard Feelings is like my favorite song from Melodrama, and it was the first one that I gravitated towards before I slowly started to open up to the rest of the amazing album that is Melodrama.
We're also a Lorde podcast.
We are honestly, we're probably gonna end up doing a podcast where we go over our favorite non-Taylor Swift pop artists.
Yeah.
But Lorde, like, it's just, you can tell, like, I don't know when Melodrama came out, because I'm a Taylor Swift person. I'm not 100% a Lorde person. But I imagine I think it had to have been around the same time as this feels way too perfect.
Actually.
Or at least it was around the time they were making this movie. Yeah. Because obviously, Supercut's on it. So.
Oh, yeah, true.
So, just the fact that these lyrics, like, and we looked even harder into Hard Feelings. Let's give it a minute before we admit that they're through. This scene is the Lorde song. And then there's the line that you pointed out later. That's
2017.
So it came out after all of this had happened and she was over it, but right before the movie started.
Exactly,
so
the movie didn't come out.
This scene could have been like, wow, Lorde described it really well. Let me take that. But you pointed out the line, "When you've outgrown a lover, the whole world knows but you." Yeah. And this whole movie is like her realizing that she's no longer, like, her and her boyfriend of 9 years, they're just no longer a thing. They've outgrown each other. Yeah. And I think she even says that. Like, we in the poem that she reads towards the end of the movie, she says, like, we've grown, but we've grown as me, and we've grown, and you've grown as you, but we haven't grown as us. Yeah. Or something. I'm kind of paraphrasing. Exactly. There was so much to pull out.
Just, how we drift by in groceries, how you dance for me. You see that in the little bodega. Bodega at the end, where, you know, she's like, she has him on her shoulders, and they're buying, you know, the Diet Coke and all this stuff.
And then I'll start letting go. Oh, this song just feels, it's so good. I'll start letting go of little things till I'm so far away from you.
And you see her start to, like, let go, and, like, even in the car, like, she's, like, looking at this past life that she had with him, and she's, like, starting to let go and, like, accept it. Like, you can kind of see her, like, start to, like, smile as she remembers all these good times that they had together. And it's just heartbreaking. But
it's interesting because, like, in the beginning, all of her flashbacks are, like, these big monumental moments. Like, they're the time they met, there's the time they found their spot and he wrote, like, a heart with on the thing. There's the time they first said I love you, and then at the end she's letting go of just walking down the street with him and letting go of all these little things till she's so far away from you, and she's driving away from that street. Lorde, it's crazy. Lorde, I love you. But so going into the soundtrack.
Yeah, speaking of Lorde, so I think a cool thing, I was texting Joe about it because I thought it was going to be like this throughout the entire movie, but it wasn't. But the fact that they use these songs as, like, I don't know if trigger is the right word, but, like, they took her back. Like, she would hear a song and she was instantly transported back to this moment in time, like, where, I'm trying to think of, like, a particular moment, like, the Vampire Weekend's, Mansard Roof, where she's at this, she's in the apartment, and they're jamming out to Lizzo, and they're just, like, being so, like, young and, you know, having fun, and then this Vampire Weekend song comes on, and she hears the dun dun dun, and it's just instantly taken back to the first time she met Nate at this party. I think it's so important, and I think music is just this great method of coping, and I mean, Taylor Swift describes it best. Like, the music that she makes is a snapshot in time that is supposed to take you back to this memory. And I think that that's exactly what this movie does. Like, it takes you back to that moment in time and, like, exactly what you were feeling and what you were doing. and it's just such a great method.
You got like I can think of like multiple songs that like the second they come on, I am like in that exact moment I'm instantly transported back to when I was listening to them.
Yeah.
Luckily none of them are that heartbreaking.
Exactly.
But like yeah, like it's they're literally like a photo album of her relationship with this guy, and when you've been with someone for 9 years, like you got a lot of pictures.
Imagine, I mean, she's like 29, turning 30. That's 1/3 of your life with a person. Like, that's just a crazy concept to think about. But, I mean, the soundtrack is fantastic. As soon as they started with Supercut, as a supercut, I was like, okay, the soundtrack is going to be fantastic. I know it. Lizzo, when they're singing it in the kitchen and they just get so into it, is fantastic.
I think I don't remember, but I think when I was talking about this movie is the reason that Truth Hurts got popular.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what I heard. I could be wrong, but I heard that like because you remember like the whole thing with Lizzo was she wasn't like Truth Hurts was like out for like a year before it became popular, and I think it was this song like made like kind of brought it to the spotlight a little bit more.
Yeah, but so even just the artists like, you know, Lorde and Lizzo and Vampire Weekend, and then all of a sudden this song called Saturdays by Twin Shadow and Haim's in there.
Which is a Taylor Swift
alum. And then Phoebe Bridgers, her song Scott Street's in there, and a really cool Taylor Swift little nugget that I think is also just very meta, no one did it intentionally, is she's walking down the street and she passes by this little cafe that's called Cornelia Street Cafe.
I think they're on Cornelia Street in that scene. Like
isn't that crazy?
That's so nuts to me. Like, that's so cool.
It's just crazy.
And that's pure coincidence because
Exactly.
that Lover hadn't come out. Like I don't know if Taylor living on Cornelia Street was a big thing. Like it's just pure a coincidence, and I think it's so cool.
Exactly. And even when they're sitting by the fountain and you know, he's like, this is our spot. And he's like, this is our spot. And he's just like yelling it to everybody. I think it was a cool little tie into Lover. Like, this is our place. That's just a little nugget.
Oh, that's a good point.
Mitski, Your Best American Girl. I think that was a great choice. And another really cool thing, not necessarily music, but like when you see something that's a symbol of your relationship, like that Diet Coke when they're in the bodega and she sees it and she instantly is just like taken back for a second. She kind of like jolts herself out of it. And then she hears Dreaming of You by Selena on in the bodega, and she's just standing there with her string cheese, just singing the song and like in her feelings. I've been there so much.
Who among us has not sang into a string cheese?
In a random location. And honestly, another thing kind of away from the soundtrack really quick, but get yourself some friends like Erin and Blair. Like, that is such a great friendship. I want it to be all three of them simultaneously. Yep. They all just complimented each other so well. Like, as many times as I'm like, I want to be Erin, I'm like, I'm a Blair. I know I'm a Blair.
I think we both, because we love Brittany Snow so much that we just kept going back and forth between calling her Brittany and Snow. And I think there's one part in the movie, I forget exactly what triggered it, but we both were texting at the same time, and we both sent, I'm so Brittany.
Like, yep, that's me. The fact that they, let's see what else. Reasons Not to Die, Rin Weaver. She's looking at the window while Matt drives her, and she's seeing all these past memories. And then you see, what song is that? Death by a Thousand Cuts. Yeah. And you see, you know, just to kill my time, I take the long way home. I ask the traffic lights if it'll be all right. They say, I don't know. Back to the soundtrack. They use Frank Ocean's Moon River while she's dreaming, and he's like apologizing to her. He's saying everything she wants to hear, and she's accepting it, like knowing like, okay, this is, you know, what I wanted to hear, but it's not what I need at this moment. It's just, so that's pretty much the soundtrack. I mean, there's other songs in there that are great. You know, like I think it's called not Someone Great, but Great Ones by Jessie Wright is in there. Okay. When she's like looking for Nate in the crowd and she can't find him, and that song's on in the background because she's performing. Just a great little addition. But that's pretty much the soundtrack. I really appreciate it, but I think we're going to get into now how it actually ties into Death by a Thousand Cuts.
And Taylor Swift
and Taylor Swift in general, yeah.
One of the things that I noticed towards the end of the movie when she's writing in her journal and she's doing the poetry, this line exactly from Death by a Thousand Cuts is, if the story's over, why am I still writing pages? Like, I think it in the beginning of the movie, she starts writing like this journal, or she starts journaling or something. Like, it shows like some kind of journey showing that she's starting this relationship, but like now that the story's over, she's still writing, and she's still writing about it, and like that the poem she writes is absolutely gorgeous.
It's
heartbreaking, and it's also like it's one of acceptance, because like it's the poem starts with her wanting one more everything, hoping that if we keep doing one more of something, it'll lead to a lifetime. But then she slowly like realizes throughout the poem that like it's just not, we're never gonna get that. We're not who we are. I'm just yearning for something that doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. And then she makes the line, when glass shatters, or sometimes it doesn't break, glass shatters. Yeah. But when you put it up to the light, shattered glass glitters. Yeah. And I think we were talking about that just today, where we were like, well, isn't that the line of from Taylor Swift, the
chandelier still flickering here. That's Death by a Thousand Cuts.
Yeah. Which
just all these little things. I mean, even a very simple line, I get drunk, but it's not enough because the morning comes and you're not my baby. They are drunk the entire movie.
The entire movie.
They're either drunk or high. It's just crazy. And then all of the flashbacks, I see you everywhere. The only thing we share is this small town. New York isn't small, but like the area that they live in, you know, they're seeing each other at Neon Classic, all these similar events, bodegas, things
everywhere
like that.
she's going, she's seeing a flashback of him.
Exactly. And then...
You pointed this one out.
Yes. So I think something really interesting that I was like, ooh, Taylor Swift. The song that influenced the movie was, you know, when Matt is talking to Jenny and they're in that little like hallway type thing at the end of the movie, and he's like, you know, you're blessed with a broken heart. When it doesn't hurt you anymore, that's when you know it's over. Live in this as long as you can. And I just think that's a great precursor to like Clean. When the rain came pouring down, when I was drowning, that's when I was finally clean. Like, by morning, gone was any trace of you. It's like you're finally clean from this. So the heartbreak that you felt, like, that's how you know it's real. Like, that's how you know that you went through it and this love was true and authentic. And, you know, live in this. Live in the happiness and the sadness. Live in all this emotion, because when it's over, you won't feel that anymore.
That absolutely killed me. Like, that's because I was like, especially coming from Matt in this movie.
Yeah,
but
just this irrelevant character, Matt.
But it was just so fascinating, because like I was thinking about that, like when I live in breakups, like, and I leech onto that feeling and I hold on to it, and it's interesting because when you do that, technically that relationship isn't over for you. Like you're not in the part of the relationship you were before, but you're still in an aspect of that relationship. Yeah. And you won't be able to move on from that until you go away. And just I love the perspective of if you're this dead set on this relationship, then you better enjoy this heartbreak from it, because this is your only connection to it now.
Yeah.
And if you think it's that special, you better hold on to it and just enjoy it while you can, and realize that when it's done, it's done.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not over.
Yeah, it's over for the other person.
It's over for the other person, but you can cling on.
Another cool tie-in to Death by a Thousand Cuts was, you know, now I'm searching for signs in a haunted club, and she's literally looking for him in this club after she sees him that initial time and she can't find him, and she's like searching for a sign. I think that's pretty much it for Death by a Thousand Cuts, but I mean,
if you listen to if you watch this movie, every time you listen to Death by a Thousand Cuts, things will pop out.
It feels like it fits very well. You can definitely tell that they're related to one another. The only other Taylor line that I could kind of relate to was Wildest Dreams, which is also on 1989, which is, say you'll remember me, say you'll see me again, even if it's just in your wildest dreams. And she's literally sitting there, or she's sleeping on the fountain dreaming of him. And it's just like this, you know, heartbreaking little, like, say you'll remember me, like, say you'll remember, like, all these times we had, even if it's just in your dreams.
I think that's like the big part of this movie too. It's like, it is a very sad movie, but, and Taylor says it best, like, there's no bad guy.
Yeah.
Like Nate isn't a jerk. Nate isn't a bad, like, you can't really hate, like you said, as soon as you met him, you're like, oh, I love him.
Yeah.
And like they're both great. Like, none of them
they're both great characters. It's just you outgrow each other.
Yeah.
And that's like the heartbreaking. It's, you know, hard feelings.
And they show like them fighting and everything, but like you're gonna fight in a relationship. Like they didn't show like a relationship ending fight. They just showed spats.
These death by 1,000 cuts. It's these thousands of little things that just add up and you grow apart. And it's not one thing you can't say, oh, you cheated. Oh, you did this bad thing to me. it's a death by 1,000 cuts. It's all these little things that add up, and just even the smallest little thing just sets it off, and you're like, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, this is what...
I can't believe we broke up.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal movie. I think more movies need to be made like this in a realistic capacity.
Yeah.
Because it's just so important to negate what you expect from... Because, like, that was the thing that I liked at the end, where, like, when he comes up and he says everything she wants to hear, and you're like, oh, this is just another rom-com, because he, the guy finally does it. He says everything she wants to hear. They get back together, happy ever after. And...
But it's not.
It's not.
She wakes up.
And you pointed this out too. The whole time he's saying it, she's like wryly smiling, like, I know this is what I want to hear, but it doesn't change anything. And she knows that it's basically her thinking, even if he came to me and said everything I wanted to hear, it wouldn't change anything. We're still going to be broken up.
Yeah.
I'm still going to San Francisco. And that's just like, it's her acceptance, which I think is it's so important, because like that's such a healthy
because she wakes up and she says, I'm sad, I'm so sad, but that's how it is. It's just like, you can't change anything. It's a great movie. Highly recommend it. Yes.
So anything you want to say in closing aside from great movie? I highly recommend it.
If you haven't watched it after we just talked about it, what are you waiting for?
It's on Netflix. It's on Netflix. It's
90 minutes.
So easy. 90 minutes.
Exactly.
Perfect. Highly recommend. Next week we'll be back with more Taylor stuff, more specific Taylor Swift. But we wanted to take a little bit of a break to do something a little bit different.
Exactly.
If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to us on whichever podcast platform you're on. Give us 5 stars, give us a comment, feedback, let us know what you think.
Let us know if you want to hear more episodes like this. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at We Need to Calm Down Podcast. I'm going to cough. At WNTCD Podcast on Twitter. We're also on YouTube, so you can see our lovely faces. You can see us laughing. You can see our outfits with my supercut and our Ed Sheeran shirt.
Button.
And the button. We have buttons now.
We have buttons.
DM us. Let us know if you want a button.
Yeah, let me know.
Look it up.
We'll hook you up.
But just leave a comment, DM us, let us know what you think, if you want to see anything in particular. If you have a suggestion for an episode, let us know. Thanks so much. Come back. We'll be here.
Ooh, I like that. That was good. That was good.